Throughout my adult life, my focus has been on making the world a more beautiful place. Initially, I pursued this goal as a hairstylist, working on the external appearance of individuals to make them feel more beautiful. However, I wanted more, so I began to shift my focus to helping people make better choices and achieve greater beauty from within. As a transformational life coach, I specialize in helping you identify and change the limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. Join me each week as we discuss, interview, teach, and explore the fundamental principles of healthy relationships. Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Louisa. Hello, everyone. I am Louisa Jovanovic, and we are here with Conscious Conversations with Louisa. And I have the honor and pleasure of introducing you guys to Brisa Alfaro. I normally know everything about the person I get to interview, almost everything. This is a new one for me because I fell in love with her 30 seconds into saying hello. She literally she had me at hello. And I wanted to try something new and actually have this relationship unfold publicly. I did watch your TEDx, and your story is mind-blowing.
Thank you.
Beautiful human. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Louisa, and such short notice and not knowing anything about me and just having a conversation. I love this.
Me too. As I was saying 30 seconds before we actually hopped on, the timing of this is so precious because a friend of mine, very, very close family, has their son was in a accident and he's in a coma right now. And your story literally, sent me a message 30 seconds after I heard the other story. And I'm never at a loss with words. And we're going to tap into you being a hairdresser too. We're never at a loss with words. This has me right here. Because the
Thank
truth is,
you.
like, it really could happen to anyone, and you personally got to experience it. So how today's going to go is truly, we're going to have an opportunity to hear your whole story, because I never think it's about what happened.
Mhm.
I believe it's who we are and
Mhm.
what we're here for. So,
Yeah.
dedicating this session, honestly, to Colt and to you for being warriors.
Mhm.
And just like how I know when I met that little boy, a delicious love, he touched my heart. And I know I could see it in your soul. Like, I could see you, I could feel you. You've touched so many lives. So let's go back to the beginning. Like, what is your first memory of being the spirited little girl?
Well, first of all, Louisa, thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to share my story with your audience. Um, I never thought that this was going to be the direction of my life, where it was going to be going. Um, when I was a little girl, I never thought that I was going to be all the things that I ended up becoming. Um, when I was young, I, of course, had big goals and dreams and things that I wanted to do and accomplish. And I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew I was going to get there. Um, I knew that I wanted to help people make them feel beautiful. And sometimes people would talk to me, um, even through going through school, high school, all that. People would talk to me, and I would think they don't see themselves the way I see them. And I always it always like struck me like, how come they don't see themselves like this? Um, because I saw the beauty in them and they didn't. So I think that's the reason that my path went onto the beauty industry. And as I became an adult, I decided to become a cosmetologist, and I did the beauty industry to the biggest, extent that I could. I was in I did hair, makeup, nails. I was able to my work was in magazines. I was working New York Fashion Week. I loved my industry. And I loved meeting all the people. I loved my clients. I felt like whenever you sat in my chair, your world was going to change, even if it was just for a couple hours. I needed you to see the beauty that I saw, whether it was on the small canvas that I was working on or the inside. I need you to see the beauty that I see. So I kind of built my career that way, and it just was like one stepping stone after another, and I built it as big as I could ever imagine. And honestly, I didn't think that my life was gonna redirect at all, because I thought that that was my purpose, that was my passion. Um, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing.
How old were you when you got started?
I was probably 21
And
years old. 20, I was 20, 21.
I mean, there's
Mhm.
hairdressers who do hair, and then there's hairdressers who succeed
Yeah,
in doing hair. What do you think
yeah.
it was about who you were being? Other like I love, I love common denominators. What I love about doing hair and interviews is common denominators. And people like you who say, I saw the beauty in someone, right? Like I wanted them to feel what I could see in them. That
Mhm.
that lands for me. I'm like, yes, I get that.
Yeah. And
What
most
do you,
of the time when I would see it, when I would when I would see them be able to see that beauty that I saw, it was when I turned their chair around and they got the chance to see themselves in the mirror after I was done working on them. Or if I did their nails, it was when I was done finishing their nails, and then they're looking at their nails going, wow, that's beautiful. Or they love their hair, or they love their makeup. Whatever it was the final result and they loved. But I realized the process of getting there, the process of that final result is also beautiful. And too many times as hairdressers, we never allowed them to see the process. We wanted the big aha moment at the end. Um, it was almost like we're magicians, like
right? But
we just created something. Uh-huh.
here's really what's fascinating to me. I believe maybe people do have that in their heart to want to be that. How
Mhm.
did you have the confidence to step into the leadership? And I'm going to guess you actually didn't realize you were doing that. I'm going to guess it was just in your nature to be such a leader. But can you identify who was it a personal choice of every day I'm going to do my very best, or would you say that's just innately who you are?
I think a lot of it comes from growing up, my background, my family, the family dynamic I grew up in. Um, I think I grew up in the service industry, so my family was that was kind of a big deal for us. And I knew that if I showed up that way, I could make a difference. And even if it was a small difference, I could make a difference. And I think it felt better for me. I mean, it's just kind of like receiving a present or giving a present. When at Christmas time, when you are wrapping all those presents and you're giving them away, when you're watching your loved ones open the presents, it, it feels, it's more fulfilling to watch them open it than for you to open a present that someone else gave you. Sometimes it's just more fulfilling to see them light up, see their faces like, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be able to do that all the time. I wanted to be able to feel that all. And the only way I knew how to do, like to feel that is to give it away, to make that, to make people see what I see. And the beauty industry was the closest that I could get to that.
Right.
I grew up in the restaurant industry, and for 45 minutes, we were able to see people absolutely loving their meals, their dinners, and you see them, do the happy dance while they're eating. And I love to see it, but I also wanted more. So
Right.
that's why I became a hairstylist. I've always wanted more of that, more of that, more of that. I've been yearning for that my whole life.
Right.
So,
I get that. I actually, as a teenager, waitress at a restaurant. And I think everybody should work in a
yes.
restaurant because you
Hmm.
really, really, really learn about people. Like I remember people loved me because I knew what their order was going to be before they sat down. People loved me because I was able to hang out with them and experience that connection. There were times I didn't feel well and I internally just maybe felt sad. And I would get to work and I would feel better because I was connecting with other people.
Hmm.
And I also knew how to multitask and have a really busy restaurant and get to everybody. That all played a role in becoming a hairdresser. I
Yes.
think that's what, we do sometimes three, four people at a time. And it really comes from being able to manage and you come growing up in the restaurant industry, being able to manage that that buzz.
Yes. And I think ultimately it does come down to connection. When you're open to the connection, when you're open to receive the connection, you're able to give them what they need. Sometimes, many times, it's happened to me on more than one occasion where I didn't even know why I was saying what I was saying, but I felt like I needed to say it. And then after I say it, the person that I was talking to says, "You have no idea how much I really needed to hear that right now." Well, that's because we tapped into our connection. We all
Absolutely.
have that ability. We all do.
Absolutely. Has there ever been a time, I'm going to guess yes, because where someone actually doubted your work and implied you weren't going to make it?
Oh yeah, and multiple times in my life.
Yeah, those are, there are some people who have that stop them from ever succeeding. And then there's people who go, but I will show you.
Yes, yes, and sometimes that little nudge is what we need. We need, and a lot of times we think we want to a life without resistance, but that's not gonna bring us the joy that we need. That's not gonna get us to our end result. We need a little bit of resistance in order to give us that drive to get to where we need to go. I think when you're wandering around in life without no real direction, you won't end up anywhere. You'll just keep wandering around. You
Right.
need a direction. And sometimes it comes to us through someone doubting us, it comes to us through someone challenging us or something challenging us. Um, I think we need to use that to fuel to where how we fuel us to help us get to where we need to get to instead of thinking that it's working against us. It's actually working for us.
Absolutely. So let's bring us to the time in your life um, when one of the biggest things in the world you got to experience. Was there anything that you could say, I kind of maybe missed this was about to happen, and also share what happened?
Yeah, so I was living my life not honestly, I was in the state of everything was going right in my life and never really expected anything bad to happen to me at this point. I wasn't a bad person. I didn't think I deserved anything bad to happen to me. I just thought that everything should keep going well. I think that when we start thinking that we are a rare exception of these rules of the universe, then those things happen. And it kind of sometimes either happens subtly and gradually, and we can pick up on the pieces as we go along, or it comes as a slap in the face. And for me, it was a slap in the face. I was minding my own business, living the life of my dreams. Um, I ended up working, I was working in New York City. I was about to do a hair show, and I was about to be on stage the next day. So I was thinking, um, my life is great. Nothing horrible could happen, right? Famous last words. And then
Did
I
you
end up
actually
in,
have that thought? Did you actually think nothing horrible can happen? Or you just were busy living?
I was busy living. I just
Okay.
didn't, it wasn't a thought. It wasn't, I didn't think that it could happen because I didn't focus on it. I also kind of felt like I said before, I was a good person. I was doing the right thing. So those bad things won't happen to me. So I don't
Right.
even need to think about those things. All I need to do is think about what I'm doing right now.
Right.
But I also didn't understand or think about what I'm doing right now is also not appreciating what I'm doing right now. I'm just doing it. I'm just going through the motion. And I'm not really appreciating what I've created, what I've done, who I'm impacting. I'm just going through the motion. And I think that's when I got my wake up call. That wake up call came to me with uh, an unexpected moment in a New York City hospital. I was laying in a hospital bed with a less than 1% chance to survive. I was given the odds of not only the less than 1% chance, but I was told, well, I wasn't told, I overheard that there were less than 5 cases per year worldwide of what I just developed. And I honestly didn't think they were talking about me. This is how warped my mentality was. I was thinking I was too good for something like that to happen to me. I don't deserve anything like that. I know they couldn't possibly be talking about me, but they were. And then I overheard them saying they had to get a hold of my mom and explaining to her, to amongst themselves, what was my case and what was going on. Meanwhile, no one is talking to me. Everyone is talking about me. Everyone is in the room is talking about me as if I'm not even in the room. And I didn't understand that until I realized that I wasn't speaking. Everyone was talking around me because no one could hear what I was saying or what I was trying to say. I could be saying, I'm here to talk to me. Tell me what's going on. They're still talking amongst each other. I had no idea that at that point, I already had suffered a stroke. At 32 years old, I suffered a stroke, and not just any stroke. So most strokes that people experience, it happens on either side of their body, the left side or the right side. Mine happened in the middle. So it affected both sides. And I developed something called locked in syndrome, where I was essentially locked in my own body, where things would come in, but I couldn't express that they were coming in. So I could hear the world around me, but I couldn't communicate with the outside world. Everything was stuck in my body. I was trapped. It was like a nightmare. And as I was hearing them describe what I was going through and how they were going to break this news to my mom, I remember thinking, they're not talking about me. There's no way this is me. That's not my story. But it was. It was my story. And I had to realize that it's not a moment about you accepting it and taking it for what it is. It's a moment of you realizing what is and then pivoting and figuring out what you need to do next. And I think that for me, that's what I had to go through. I had to have a moment of like, okay, this is my reality. This is what I'm going through, but this is not going to define me. This is not going to be the final answer. I'm going to do everything in my power to make my life, come back to life again. I didn't know how I was going to do that because at this stage, I was still in the hospital. At this point, my mom was finally making it 3,000 miles across the country to my destination in New York. And I'm listening to the doctors basically pronounce my fate and let her know that if your daughter does make it, she will be a vegetable for the rest of her life. She will be on breathing tubes and a feeding tube for the rest of her life. She'll maybe be able to have eye movement and she might be able to communicate through eye movement, but that's it. And they gave her some information and knowledge about what locked-in syndrome was so she could look it up, which was the worst thing that they could have done because it's very scary when you look it up. But my mom is a very stubborn Latin mama. She had nothing to do with it. And she said, no, you don't know the strength that my family has. You don't know the strength in my daughter and how she's going to react from this. And I know that this is not going to be the end of her journey. She didn't believe anything that the doctors had said to her, even though the medical report said otherwise, even though the odds were not in my favor, even though there was no reason for her to think otherwise, she did. And she didn't allow me to think otherwise. So from that point on, she came into my room and stayed by my bedside day and night, night and day, never ever letting me experience this all alone. I always knew she was with me. And and I honestly in the beginning I used to think she was the only one that could hear me and could communicate with me because nobody else could or hear me, but my mom could. At least I thought she could. But you know why? It was because it was a mother's intuition. There were certain times where I would be laying there and I would think I'm cold. And my mom would come over and say, baby girl, are you cold? Do you want a warm blanket? And then she would reach over and talk to the nurses and ask them, can I get a warm blanket for my daughter? I think she's cold. How did she know that? She
Right.
was just being a mom, she was just being a mom, like being motherly. That's it.
What
There
was
was
your
times where
relationship like with her before this? Like, was she one of those like I know that when people go through an experience like this, their mom becomes someone very, very special. Was your relationship with your mom before this very, very special? Or
not not like this.
yeah,
No.
because
I never knew. I always, to be completely honest with you, I used to have a pity party about it. I used to think, why does my mom have to be so hard on me? Why is she so why does she want me to be so strong? She always tells me things like this is this is you're just scratching the surface, Brisa. This is not the hardest thing you're gonna ever have to go through. Women are gonna have to endure worse. Suck it up. You're fine. And I used to think, how come my mom isn't like, you know, caring and endearing? She was, but she always wanted me to be this strong person. And sometimes I just didn't want to be. Sometimes I just wanted to be like, a little bowl of marshmallows with my mom. And she didn't allow me to be that. And
was she
she
this way
always,
also? Was she also that strong in her own life? Was she
yes,
that?
very, very strong in her life. And she had to be. And so she wanted me to be that also. She always knew that no matter what came into my life, no matter what I experienced, I had no choice but to come out on top. And she always like instilled that in my being. And so I knew that there was no other choice. And so when my mom came to me while I was in this situation, she was treating me just like she's always treated me. There is no plan B, Brisa. There is no other option. You need to get better. Just like when I was a little girl and I would cry to her and say, Mom, I don't want to go to school today. I have cramps. She would say, suck it up. You're going to school. And I would think, that's so mean. But now I'm so glad that she was like that
Yeah.
because those experiences that we have growing up, even if we didn't like them, even if they were challenging, even if we didn't understand them, I think they happened for us.
Yeah.
And in this situation, it happened for me because it made me resilient. It made me a stronger person. It made me believe that I needed to suck it up and I needed to get over it. And honestly, it didn't matter what everybody else was saying to me on the outside. I mean, doctors were coming into my hospital room left and right and talking to my mom and letting her know what the odds were and what they see, and not to get her hopes up or the family to get their hopes up, and as a matter of fact, call the rest of the family to come possibly say goodbye to me. And she's like, I'm going to call my family, but they're not going to come say goodbye. They'll be here. And one by one, they all started showing up. And it was almost like they were all in the same plan. Like my mom was the coach, and she made sure that everyone was a team player. And they all came in the room and they all spoke to me as if my healing was inevitable. And it was almost surreal, like what I was experiencing. I knew that they couldn't hear me or speak to me, or I could speak to them. I couldn't communicate with them, but I did feel like they knew I was going to be okay, just
How
like I
long
knew I was going to be okay.
how long were you completely unable to communicate?
At that point, it was a couple months. I was in New York for a couple months, and they wouldn't allow me to, maybe 3 months. They wouldn't allow me to come back to California, where the rest of my family was. They needed me to stay until I was stable enough to fly in a medical jet to make the trip to California. So one by one, they all started showing up in the hospital in New York. And I honestly thought they were all just visiting me to encourage me. I never thought that it was because my doctors didn't have high hopes for me. I never thought that. So after having these conversations with them, I started to believe like I do need to hurry up because that's what they were telling me. Rita, you got to hurry up and get out of here because we got to go do XYZ. We got to go to Disneyland. We got to go shopping. You got to do my hair, like all these things. And I'm thinking, hey, you're right. I got to get out of here. Even boss, my boss came to the hospital and, had plans for me for the future. And I'm thinking, I really got to hurry up and get out of here. So I need to like make this happen quickly. I didn't ever doubt that I was going to make a complete recovery. I always knew I was going to, and it was just a matter of time.
Right.
So at this point, when I was thinking that, it didn't look like that from the outside. And I think that's where a lot of us get caught up because we have big goals and dreams and things we want to accomplish. And we might be even on our way to get there. But then on the outside looking in, other people see that and they see where you are right now and they don't see a way for you to ever get to where you want to go, where your dreams and your goals are that you keep talking about or thinking about. They don't see that at all, but you do. And it's almost like it's your own little reality in your mind. And that was mine. That was my own little reality until the doctors would come in and draw blood or something. And then when they would do that, then it would be like my reality bubble would pop and I would be reminded of my here and now by the voices of my doctors or my nurses or someone that came in to draw blood or give me my medicine or something. And then I realized, like, oh, yeah, I'm laying in my bed and I can't move and they can't hear me. But it didn't stop me from dreaming. I kept dreaming, I kept planning. So, right when they would leave, it was almost like a pause button. I paused on the movie and I let them do what they had to do. And then when they would leave, I played the movie again. And then I would start dreaming again. And then I kept thinking, I got to show my family and everyone a sign that I am still in my body and I am trying to make a difference. And many times I did try, and uh, those movements were chopped up as involuntary movements. And that was pretty frustrating because I was trying and trying, and it wasn't well received. And again, that happens to all of us in life, especially if we're trying to do something new or trying to accomplish some big goal. We hit a dead end or we hit a roadblock and we think, maybe I should try to pivot, or maybe you should just keep trying.
Right.
And that's what I did. I just kept trying. And um, eventually someone noticed. That was my mom. My mom noticed, and she noticed me move my pinky. And she was so excited. She ran to tell the doctors, my daughter's moving. She's moving on command. And of course, the doctors disregarded her excitement. And they said, ma'am, I know you want to believe it. But like we said before, those movements are involuntary. And my mom, again, being as stubborn as she was, had nothing to do with that. Had them come back in and check me and evaluate me right in that very moment. And in that moment, I knew I had to do it again. They had to see it now. I had to make sure that my efforts were not going to go unnoticed. And they were all gathered around my bed and waiting for me to show them a sign that I was still in my body. And I wish I could tell you it was so simple. I just flickered my pinky one more time and they were able to see it, but it wasn't like that. I tried and I tried, and all of my limiting beliefs started to come in and started to take place because I started to hear outside influences. I started to hear some of the other doctors say, I don't think she can do it. She's not doing it. And I started to believe them until one more person says, no, 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 I really think she's trying. Give her more time. I think her face has just changed. I think she's trying. That moment, hearing it from someone that believed in me, gave me a little bit more energy, gave me, I call it ganas. Ganas means like the will to live, the will. It's sheer will. It gave me more will to make that that connection happen again. And I was able to finally send that energy beam that came from my brain, went all the way through my body, through my hand, all the way down to my pinky. And I was able to flicker my pinky one more time. And that moment was a moment for not only the doctors and nurses and my family to see that I was in my body and I was trying, but it was also a moment for me to understand that my recovery journey and any other journey that I'm about to face is gonna start with the flicker of my pinky. I don't have to move mountains right away, but I do have to make a small move to make a big difference. And in that moment, that was a pinky move for me. I flickered my pinky. And after that, I learned how to move my hand and move my arm, and then the right side of my body. The left side came months later. And then I learned how to sit in a wheelchair and walk with a walker, later with a cane. And eventually I was walking unassisted. I went on to run 5Ks and 10Ks. I was doing things that I never thought possible. I never thought I was going to be standing on stages and sharing my story, writing a international number one bestseller. Never thought that would be me. Never. I mean, what? I just didn't think that something like that could happen to someone like me. But why not? Right?
Right.
Why do we stop dreaming? When we're children, we don't even know how to not dream. That's all we do. When we have a moment to play, that's what we do. We go right into, like, I'm going to be Superman. And you put that cape on and you're running around, and no one can tell you that you're not Superman or Wonder Woman. You're doing all the things that Superman and Wonder Woman would do. So of course you're Superman, right? No one can tell a little kid when they are in imagination that they are not that. And as a matter of fact, us as adults, we play along with it. And we're like, we go along with it and we encourage it. But as adults, we stop dreaming. We stop wanting more for ourselves. We stop believing that the impossible can be possible.
Well, it's interesting that you initially thought nothing bad could happen to you, but you also thought nothing good could happen. So you were comfortable in where you were, and you thought
Yes.
it's controlled. Here's where I am. I'm good because
Uh-huh.
it's what you had believed and chosen. So, like, your story was, here I am.
Yes.
And fascinating. I always think that, like, God has something bigger for us, right? Like,
Yes.
he really does. And I believe when we tap into the superheroes and the dreamers, then we remember why we're here.
Yes.
And the I love that your mom was so powerful. I love, and it's really interesting because I am going to tie it into, I was at Secret Knock Women and Alin was talking about Colt, and she said, they were at an audition, and he got a whole bunch of great praises about how great he was doing. And he says, Mom, I just wish I had like constructive criticism like you. You always like tell me how I could get better. And so what you were saying about your mom, about the way she was with you, I believe is what he also needs to be in the space he's in right now, because he's coming out. Like, I believe
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're telling this story today, and I need it. This community needs it. The world needs it, because the tiny little pinky move is the one step we get. People ask me when they interview me, what is the one thing you would say today? And it's really like as simple as it is just take one action step. Yours was
Yeah.
one pinky, and I say this, and I at the afterwards I'll go, that was it. That's what I said. Just take an action step. That's really what I said. And then I'll re-question myself. But you just confirmed how powerful
It
that
is.
one action step is.
It doesn't have to be complicated. And I think a lot of times, like, going back to what you were just saying, I was in a state of comfortable. I was very comfortable. And there was no big ups or downs or anything like that. But if you think about it, when we're looking at a heartbeat, there's a lot of ups and downs. When it's linear, when there's just flat lines, what does that mean?
Dead.
That's it. So
Yeah.
when we think that we need to have a flat line, we need to have everything perfect. We need to have everything lined up so that there is no, you know, bad moments or good. Like the good moments are, of course, always welcome, but you can't have the good without the bad. So
Right.
you have to be comfortable with the fact that it is going to be uncomfortable sometimes. It's going to be
Absolutely.
great sometimes, but it's also going to be risky sometimes. And that's okay, because that means we're living. When it's a flat line, it's too comfortable. It's not working for us. And I think that so many times we're too scared of nothing. We don't want anything bad to happen to us or any of our loved ones.
Yeah.
But I think that even when it happens to us or to a loved one, it's a learning, it's a moment that someone somewhere has a lesson to learn, whether it be the person going through it or the people on the outside. We need to learn from this moment.
Were you
And
able to receive information? Like my experience of what's happening right now is an
mhm,
integration. Like when you're in that space, you know how when you're meditating, you're in this very, very space that you could receive information. Were
mhm,
you receiving information during that time?
yes, like downloads, you mean? Like,
Yes. Yeah,
yes.
exactly. That's the word I use, but I know a lot of people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I get a lot of downloads during the day, and especially when I'm meditating or doing hot yoga, I get a lot of downloads. I think that when you're in a coma, you're in that trance state.
Yes.
I picture powerful downloads during that time.
Well, especially because of the state I was in. Many times I fell into a state between awake and asleep. And that is one of the most powerful parts of your brain, your mind, because you're operating with the rest of your mind. You're not operating in the prefrontal cortex of your mind. The prefrontal cortex is the here and now. When you're dreaming, when you're imagining, when you are, creating, that's the most powerful part of your brain, powerful part of your mind. And I was tapping into that all the time. And I was creating my reality because I was dreaming and because it was so vivid in my mind of what I wanted to create. I wasn't focused on what is the here and now. I was focused on what I wanted. And because of that, I believe that's why I made a complete recovery. Because I think a lot of times we as adults operate in our conscious mind and we think of all the reasons why it cannot happen, all the
Right.
reasons, all the data, all the, you know anything. We want it to be black and white, and it's not always black and white.
Right.
And I think that when we are able to let go and we are able to tap into that subconscious mind, it's the most powerful tool that we could ever utilize in our body, in our
Absolutely.
life. And I don't think that we do that enough, because the the things that are possible when we learn how to utilize our subconscious mind is limitless. And when people used to ask me, but how? How did you do it? What was the one thing that you did? Was it just repetition? Did you just keep moving your pinky? Did you just, was it, what did you do? What did you watch? What did you, and it wasn't just one thing, it was everything. But honestly, it was the state that I was in. I was, I was in such a state of absolute possibility. Like I knew that this was going to happen. I was like future pacing my life.
Right.
And as a result of that, when those things were happening to me, it wasn't a surprise because I expected it already.
Right.
So when I learned how to walk and I learned how to breathe on my own and I had the feeding tube removed. Like, I wasn't surprised that it was all coming together. I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time.
Absolutely.
So I think that that's one of the missing pieces that we have as adults. We think that we have to plan everything and it needs to go exactly by the book. No, we just have to keep dreaming about it. We have to keep, yes, stay in action, but also keep dreaming. What else do you want? And what else do you want?
Absolutely. And
don't just stop at one thing. Keep
totally. And
going.
declare it like it's already done. The things that I have accomplished are the ones that before they even were a possibility, I said
Oh
it
yeah.
was done. And I absolutely think the reason, well, it's synchronicities
Mhm.
blow my mind.
Mhm.
So I was on an interview with James Dixon the other day, and he brings on the hypnotist who was doing stage hypnosis at Secret Knock the year before. Why I became a hypnotherapist is because I watched him tell somebody or the stage that they were experiencing their booty was being pinched, and they kept having a hard time sitting because they kept feeling pinched. The next day, and it's my friend, so I know that they're not lying to me, right? She had a sore butt. Like it was actually sore, but no one touched her. The entire next day, she goes, I feel sore. I was like, if our subconscious is that powerful, and my intention in life is to speak on stages, and the thing between me and that stage is the belief that I have that I'm afraid. And if she can experience what she experienced on stage, I'm going to do that because I'm going to work with my subconscious mind.
Mhm.
And everything that you're saying is aligning to my belief of that. So what are the odds? He interviews me. This gentleman, David, comes on and he's sharing I had the I'm sorry, not David, Mark. He comes on and he's sharing his story. And I literally ended the interview, looked at my phone, and you had messaged me.
Wow.
Like it's just across.
Wow.
Right?
Mhm.
Like I literally ended the interview, looked at my Instagram, and there you are. And it's those synchronicities that allow me to trust that there's a method to this. When we're in our space of
Alignment.
flow, we attract exactly who we need to attract. Here's where I have to say this, like you have to see how beautiful this is. So I found these videos of Colt and the little boy. And he's done this a few years ago. And it's all powerful affirmations that he says. So when I picture him in that bed, I'm hearing himself replay his own affirmations and stay in his body because there's a reason. And because it's you don't really realize when you're on stage in New York and you're being the incredible hairdresser, people don't just land there, right? Like to make it the way you did in hair doesn't happen to every hairdresser. So your level of excellence, you being able to be on stage, your beingness in this world is who you are. And so that person laying in the hospital bed is the same person who levels up to that level of excellence. I love who your mom had been for you growing up because of the way she held you high and as much as you resisted. And I specifically have been interviewing moms because I'm a mom. I'm like, who do I get to be for my kids? Because let me tell you, there are times my kids are like, enough, mom, right? Enough. I don't want to hear one more positive thing. I don't want to read one more book. I don't care enough of all this blah, blah, blah. You are just showing me to not stop
Yep.
because I want
Yep.
to continue being that mom who is relentless. I want
Yep.
my children and anyone I touch to know it's exactly what you shared as you started, how beautiful they are and why they're here. I believe that we all inside of us have that little spirit that says, I get to do big things.
Mhm.
It can't just be you and I. It can't be just a small number of people. I truly believe when we get to dream, we all want to be extraordinary.
It's 100%. That's so true. When we start letting outside influences rain on our parade. We all start with big hopes and dreams and goals and aspirations. And it's the outside influences. If we allow them to, they rain on our parade and they can hinder us and hinder our greatness, because all of us are meant to be great.
Yeah.
All of us have the exact ingredients inside of us to be able to be great and at whatever it is that we're trying to be great at. But we also have the same ingredients as everyone else to be able to rain on our own parade. And a lot of times that happens with our own thoughts. A lot of times we rain on our own parade because limiting beliefs, because of self-doubt. So we start to sabotage our greatness
Right.
because we think that, who am I to think that I could be different? Who am I to think that I could break this generational curse?
Yeah.
Who am I to think that I could make a complete recovery? Who am I to think that?
Yeah.
Well, why not you? If not you, who?
See, that's the thing. I wake up with that language pulling me forward. And I sometimes think I'm the only person who's had them. And then when I share this, you share, I'm like, yes, I feel that. And it
Mhm,
reaffirms, because I do remember, and I share this often, riding my bike. And as I'm listening to Oprah and Eckhart Tolle, and then he asked her, what do you like to do? She says, I like to learn and I like to teach. And my brain said, yes, me too. And then my brain said, who do you think you are?
mhm,
And that little girl who wanted to be a hairdresser and teach on stages, that voice of who do you think you are? I didn't make it on stages because I had a million limiting beliefs of how was I going to get there.
mhm,
So the blessing happened, and just like it's a blessing and not, right? Like COVID happened,
mhm,
and I was terrified of stages, but I got to teach on Zoom. And I got to use my voice on Zoom when I was so scared to be on a stage. And I got to take an 8-week course that helped me become who I became. And that helped me know that, I saw you on stage, right? You looked really comfortable. You look like you um owned the stage, like you'd
mhm.
already been there
Thank
your
you.
entire life.
Thank you.
And I always looked at people like that and I thought, how do they do that? But you know what's fascinating is that I became a hairdresser hoping to like clean up how I looked so I could fit in. I wanted to be able to fit in with everybody else. I wanted to look like there wasn't something wrong with me. And what I discovered was there was nothing wrong with me. But I truly, even being here, right? Like normally I would go, okay, I can't wear my glasses because I want to look a certain way, and this and that and that. And the funny thing is as I judge myself, no one else is looking at me like that. When people hug me and say, "Oh my God, this is exactly how I remember you," I think how fascinating. People get to know our essence. They get to know
Mhm,
the way we experience each other. Like you and I had an instant connection of like, my experience is respect and admiration. Like I absolutely was like, wow, this woman is a powerhouse. She has not just who you were before this, I admire and I respect, and I then respect you so much even more with what you've gone through and become, because it's not easy in any stretch of the imagination, but you're an inspiration for everyone else struggling right now.
thank you. Thank you. It was definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. And if anybody that's listening to this wonders if their struggle is going to be worth it, yes. Yes, it is. It's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade my struggle for anything else, because for me, my struggle means that I now get to share my journey and my story with other people so that they realize their struggle is worth it, so they can go out and go change the world, so they can go out and touch the people that they need to touch and help. And like you, how many people is this, going to go out and it's going to share, you're going to share it, and all these people are going to be able to receive the benefits of what you shared, not just on this platform and on this podcast, but so many other podcasts that you've done. And I've listened to a few, and they're amazing. Amazing. You ask such great questions. And you have, when you talk about alignment, you can tell the people that land having these conversations with you, they are in alignment with you, that you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I think a lot of us get caught up in the fact that where we want to go is so far. And like you said, you want to be on stages and you want to do all these things. But if somebody were to give you the stage right now, would you be ready? You got to be able to go through all the little things. Like if somebody said to me while I was recovering and all I wanted was to get better, and they said, okay, here you are, you're healed. And they got me out of bed and I had to walk. I would have probably fell. I
Right.
wouldn't have made it. I needed to do all those little pinky moves in order to be able to start walking again. I needed to learn how to stand up on my own. I needed to learn how to walk with a walker, later with a cane. I needed to do all those little pinky moves to get to where I am.
Right.
And even with speaking, I needed to be able to share my story and communicate it with several people and understand what parts of my story do people really want to know. Because to be honest with you, Lisa, when I first started sharing my story, it scared me. It scared me because I didn't know how powerful it could land for someone. I didn't know. I'm sure you've heard the little quote, with great power, or yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. I didn't know that I was responsible for these feelings that I was going to be leaving people with if I shared my story. And so I had to realize that if I'm sharing this story and I'm watching these people, like many times I said I grew up in the restaurant industry. My family owns a restaurant. So they would see me, Brisa, how are you? Have you been? You're recovering so well. Tell me about it. Or your mom told me you had a stroke. Tell me about that. So then I have to give them a quick condensed version of my story. When I start to get into it, I start to see their demeanor change. And it would scare me to the point where I didn't want to keep going. I didn't want to keep telling my story because I saw them. They're 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 upset. Oh my God, they're crying. And me being the kind of person that I just want people to be happy. I just want people to feel good. It scared me to the point where I started to retract back, and I started to water down my story because I didn't want people to feel that way.
Right.
But I didn't realize that I can have them feel that way. If they feel it, let them feel it. But it is also my responsibility to bring them back out and also put the mirror in front of them and see how strong and powerful they could be too.
Right.
And I had to learn that. And and I'm still learning it. I'm still learning to be the best speaker that I can be. I'm still coached by amazing people in our industry. When I did my TEDx, I went through kind of some of that emotion too, because part of it is on camera, part of it is live. So I was seeing the reaction of the live audience, and I immediately would go back to like, oh my God, I'm like, they're crying, they're upset, and I wanted to retract back. But again, no, I had to keep pushing forward because I knew the end result, what I wanted to leave them with.
Right.
What And I think if we all go into it like that, what do you want to get out of it at the end, whether it be for you or for someone else? What do you want?
Well, you know what's
And
interesting is, I'm so sorry to cut you off, is
it's
like when
okay.
you're here, I was at church recently and there was a little girl who was sharing. And when she shared, I could feel her struggling to share. I felt um the spirit inside of her and I felt her beauty and I was so proud of her for sharing. And then there was a little boy who grabbed the microphone and he was charismatic and fun and he just had it, right? Well, it was interesting because I just happened to be sitting there. I didn't know either child from before this experience. And I assumed that they both were new. He just
Hmm.
happened to be better at it, more like a natural compared to her. And
Hmm.
so I spoke to someone afterwards because I was talking about my experience about both of them. And she said, "Okay, yeah, but that little boy grew up on stage. His family speaks, and he just grew up speaking."
Hmm.
I thought, how interesting. We make assumptions based
Hmm.
on, like, oh, he must be a natural. He's wonderful. And she must be struggling. But I loved them both. I was like, I cherished both of the experiences. But I assumed one just happens to be better because he must be better. He must be a natural.
Hmm.
But allowing, and I love when speakers share what they initially look like, what they went through in the beginning because I love what you're sharing because it wasn't going from the hospital bed to walking. It was the experiences. And so when I do these, I love sharing the imperfections and fears because fascinating enough, we don't see ourselves the way other people see us. Because I had someone say to me, even you, Louisa, feel that way. I was like, oh, if you only knew. If
Hmm.
you only knew the things I
Yeah.
go through to overcome fears,
Hmm.
but yet when our mission is greater, when we both know the world, when they know why they're here, you know, I struggled in school. And so
Hmm.
I didn't like school because I struggled sitting in my seat and I learn differently. So when I
Hmm.
teach my 8-week course, people are like, wow, I'm at the edge of my seat. I love showing up to your class. I realize it's because people like me like to participate.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to just sit there and listen. I like to be a student that gets to participate because how I learn is physically being involved. That's why I became a hairdresser because I could touch it. I could touch people. I could physically experience people. What love about Zoom and what I love about hair is when you're like right now, it feels like I'm looking at you in the mirror. If I'm doing
Hmm.
someone's hair, I'm looking at them in the mirror and there's this beautiful space that's being connected and I could feel things land. I could feel energy. I could feel the love. I could feel all of it. And that feels really good to me.
Yeah.
And so we do the things we love because it feels good.
Yeah. Absolutely. And going back to what you said, like everything does happen for you. And I think a lot of times we think that we need to manipulate the situation so that it can gel better, like we can, it could be less resistance and all that. But honestly, it happens for us. When right now, when you were just mentioning that, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I remember wanting to be this perfect when I first started speaking and sharing my story. I remember wanting, or even doing hair. I wanted it to be perfect right off the gate. But you can't. I mean, everything you have to figure it out. You got to learn from experiences, and those experiences don't define us, but our reactions to them do. And I realize that now I understand that. Now I'm realizing, okay, this is it's all because of how I reacted to it. It's because of the people that I had behind my chair, the connections that I had with them, the way that I saw them, the way that I was able to talk to people and feel them, feel their energy, and all of it is just kind of all encompassing. It all comes together, and it comes together so beautifully. It's when we fight it, we don't understand like the why me. why did this have to happen to me? Why this? Why now? Just know, you know what? Why me? Why now? It's for a greater good. It's for a
Right.
greater reason. You don't need to know the why right now, but you will figure it out later. I mean, you were working behind the chair for, meeting all these people because that was setting you up for this time right now,
A
right now.
100%.
And a lot of times we don't realize that. Like, I used to really question the fact, like, I have a scar on my neck. When I first came home from the hospital, it took a long time for that scar to heal. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to wear turtlenecks for the rest of my life. Why does that scar have to be so, visible for everybody to see it? I was very self-conscious about it. Then I realized that some of our greatest imperfections can be some of our greatest superpowers. When I would go to random places or meet a stranger, many times they would ask me, so what happened there? Why do you have a scar on your neck? And I would say, oh gosh, long story. I don't really want to get into that, but then there are some people will say fair enough and then just walk away. Some people would pick a little more, go a little deeper. They want to know more and more and more. And I always questioned it, like, okay, God, I see what you're doing. I'm just gonna go with it. And I would tell my story and I would say, well, I'll give you the condensed version and I'll just kind of run through it. One time I was at a makeup counter, at the MAC makeup counter, and I was buying makeup and I was still self-conscious about my scar, but I was a very new speaker and new to sharing my story and new to listening to that little whisper when God would be telling me, just share your story, just do it. She needs to hear it. They need to hear it. I was new to listening to that whisper. And this lady asked me behind the counter, she says, can I ask you what that scar is on your neck? And I said, I brushed it off like, oh, yeah, I was in the hospital for a while and machines were breathing for me. Oh, well, what happened? And then she just kept picking and wanted to know more, wanted more. I said, okay, I surrender. I just told her my story. I told her a condensed version of my story. She started crying. Instead of me retracting back like I usually always do, I kept going because I knew at this point I was going to be able to get her back out. I wasn't going to let her stay there because clearly the end result, I'm standing in front of her, I'm alive and well and happy and healthy. So I'm going to bring her back to the here and now and right now so that she can appreciate life and my story, my journey and the fact that she even asked. So after I told her, she's crying and I tell her, but I'm very grateful for everything I went through because if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't be standing here and meeting you today. And she said, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that right now. I just lost my child. And today is my first day back from my grievance leave. And I didn't think that I could be here today. I didn't think I could do this. And every client that I came up to, every customer that I walked up to, I just wanted to crawl into my shell and walk away. But I knew I had to be here and I had to be strong. And I barely could hear what anyone would say, but I heard you and I listened to what you were saying. And now I know that I don't need to know how I'm going to get to work every single day. I don't even need to know how I'm going to make it every single day or every hour or every minute. All I need to know is that I can just move my pinky right now. And I was like, whoa. When she said that to me, I then started crying, and both of us are crying, and we're at a makeup counter in Macy's, and we're like losing it. But we both needed it. I needed to hear it. She needed to hear it. I needed to know. And my story and my message is not just for me. I would be doing a disservice to people if I didn't share my message with any time that I felt called to do it. I felt called to share with you, Louisa. I felt called to reach out to you. I felt called to reach out to the people that I've spoke to before. I'm doing it because I'm just fulfilling my message and my purpose. I'm doing it so that I can help other people understand that you don't need to know where the whole staircase ends. You just need to put one foot in front of the other and you'll get there. You'll get to the top,
You
one
said
foot in front of the
something
other.
so powerful. I love everything you said, but you said something just now that I think is really um, what's missing in the experience of taking action. You didn't wait for people to come knock on your door to say, you know, I heard your story. People will do that,
Mm-hmm.
but
I
you,
did that for a while. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's what's happening is a lot of people are like, well, people are like, I'm doing everything I need to be doing. If I matter, someone will come and ask for my,
It doesn't work like that.
yeah, no, there's no fairy that shows up and sprinkles fairy dust with like, you know, I see you. You're
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. Because, like, I waited for someone to come and say, I've been watching you. You're wonderful. And I actually do think people are watching us. The ones we
Mm-hmm.
don't know are watching. But
Mm-hmm.
we do like what you did. And it was so welcomed, obviously, right? Like I normally would have taken the opportunity to get to know you, and then we would have recorded. I was so physically moved that I was like, you know what, just be prepared to record.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother to need to do anything but press record. I normally get to know people. I love them. It's a loving experience. I already knew it.
Divine timing.
And that's the
Yeah.
part is that we're waiting. We're waiting for someone to be good enough. We're waiting to be good enough. We're waiting to be prepared. We're waiting for it to be perfect. But I think it's those move your pinky, move your pinky, move your
It
pinky.
is.
You are in the chair. There you are walking.
We think that we need a divine anointing. Like,
Mhm.
okay, now you can go. And it's not like that.
Right.
So we have everything we need inside of us. We do, but we have to move our pinky. And sometimes that pinky move is us actually doing something, making the needle move.
Right.
It's not always going to come to us. Just like my recovery, I had to actually physically do something. I had to really focus on what I wanted, whether it was in the beginning stages of me just dreaming of what I wanted and just constantly like engulfing myself of what my future was going to look like, or if it was me moving my pinky, or if it was me reaching out to Luisa, whatever it was a pinky move. But if you just sit back and wait for it to come to you, see, God gives us the tools and everything that we need in order to make our dreams come true. But just like when someone gives you a birthday present, you can receive the present, but you won't have what's inside of the present until you take action and unwrap it. Unwrap that present and see what's inside. Because if otherwise, you're just going to have a present beautifully wrapped on your shelf and never know what's inside. You have to unwrap it. You have to take action because yes, you have all the tools inside of you, but you'll never know unless you start moving your pinky.
Yep.
Get in
And
action.
my favorite is really like, how is it that when someone's famous, right? Like I just saw Reese Witherspoon with her color in her hair, walking in her sweats and hanging out, and like she's confident. She's
Mm-hmm.
easily on the air with color in her hair and her sweats because she owns her space in the world. And yeah, I honestly, like, I became a hairdresser because I didn't want to look like something's wrong with me. I wanted to fit in. And the fascinating experience of being a hairdresser is you see the most beautiful people in your chair and you realize they're trying to fit in too. Like
Mhm. We
everybody's
all are.
trying to fit in, and everyone says to me, "How do you have the most beautiful relationships with these like spectacular people?" And it's because when you're a hairdresser, you see the spectacular people and you realize they're human. Like all those spectacular people
Yes.
feel like you and I. Every
Mhm.
one of them and mine even started earlier than that because I used to babysit those spectacular people and I saw them in their home. Before I even saw them doing their hair, I saw them in their home and they were normal humans. And so I have never been afraid of spectacular people because I got to grow up in their home and I got to see them in their like pajamas and slippers and like things all over the place, right? You
Mhm.
realize how
Mhm.
human people are.
Mhm.
And that's when it's so easy to love people because you
Mhm.
realize everyone, everyone has fears. Everyone wants to feel loved.
Oh
Everyone
yeah.
wants to be seen. Everyone wants to feel accepted. Everyone has that humanness.
Mhm.
And no one sees themselves, even if they have a fabulous ego, it's to protect their
Oh yeah.
vulnerability.
Of course. Of course. And I'm sure you see that all the time. In people that they do have a big ego, a big personality. You're right. It is a lot of it is to protect. A lot of it is to hide the real insecurities. And I think a lot of us do it unknowingly.
Mhm.
But when we realize there is nothing to hide, nothing to protect, it is just us. And if we realize that we are the same as everybody else, that's why when people tell me, Brisa, you're such a miracle. Although I appreciate those words, thank you for saying it, but I also feel like so are you. And by you making me different and calling me a miracle, I almost feel like it's you trying to get off the hook. You don't get off the hook that easy. You're also a miracle. So what can you do? Because you can achieve great things too. It's
Right,
not just for me or for certain people. It's for all of us. We just have to be able to find that inside of us.
right. And it's every day. It's the thing is like people want it and then they realize like, wow, I got to do this every day. That this is quite a an undertaking. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easier for someone to give up on their dreams because they don't want to show up every day. But what I
Yeah.
love that I learned is education is like compounded, friendships are compounded, love is compounded, and you just have to do this very moment. And so when I looked at it of how grand and big it is very overwhelming. And now that I
Hmm.
understand hypnotherapy and the whole like science of body, homeostasis means our insides don't want to change. They actually feel very safe the way it is. And so we really
Comfortable.
just the incremental changes is how we change is because if like I go and change my thermostat to 20 degrees right now down, I'm going to break the thing.
Hmm.
So in order to not break us, we just do little baby changes. And then before you like, I look back and I think, wow, look at what I've accomplished in the last couple of years. Look what you've accomplished in the last couple of years. But there's no way to have done it if we weren't here. I remember being 16 working out at the gym and I would look at the person teaching aerobics in the front of the class. Talk about dreaming and you know wishing. I always dreamed that was me. And not because I've said this before and people think I want to be a aerobics instructor. I just love teaching. I didn't know that. It
Hmm.
wasn't until that moment where the Oprah moment happened where he said, "What do you like to do?" And she said, "I like to learn and I like to teach." And my body lit up. I was like, "Me too." And then I looked back. I always wanted to teach, even when it was came to hair, but I just didn't see if at the time I had insecurities that had held me back from being able to do
Mhm.
that. So while you were in the hospital bed relearning all of this, I was in life learning how to move my pinky every day, because my
Mhm.
dream has always been the grand space is to make a difference. And people would say, sitting in my chair, it's so wild to see you standing behind me, because I always feel like you need a bigger stage. Like you're making such a difference. And I would hide behind the chair for the like one person I got to impact. It was wonderful. It is, but I know that there's something bigger for me. So when I get to, and the truth is, seeing you, seeing remarkable people, highlighting beautiful people, that's what brings me joy. Is seeing the relatable aspect of all of us, how we all, everything you said from the time we started, my heart goes, yeah, yeah, I need to hear that. The world needs to hear that. This is cherished information.
Thank you for saying that, Lisa. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
Thank you for really taking yourself on in life, and thank you for being who you are. Thank you for reaching out to me. It really couldn't have been a more divine timing, honestly. And it's so wild because it stretches all of us. You know, when I share, I remember every time I've shared huge things, right? I push the envelope and the
Mhm.
person calls me, I go, oh my God, I'm in trouble, right? Like my first reaction is I'm in trouble. And the two times that I have gone further than my comfort level and I think I'm in trouble, both times was the person calling me to tell me how much it mattered. And had I not taken those steps, I wouldn't have had the results. Had your mom not been, and I always, you talked about generational stuff, right? Like we tapped on it for half a second. It really comes from who your mom, what she had to endure to become
Endure.
who she is.
Mhm.
And because of who she was, who you have had the privilege of becoming, and what we need to, I'm not going to use the word survive because we've survived things. It's an experience of healing trauma in order to stand powerfully in who you are today.
Mhm.
And so, what would you say to everyone today that, like, to leave them with that concept of survival and trauma healing in order to become who you've become? What would be the, and like, words?
Well, well, first of all, I think that we think that our trauma has made us the way we are, and it's set in stone, and we're just going to be like this for the rest of our life. But I think if you look at it from a different perspective, and you look at it as a healing modality, like it's something that you went through so that right now you could become the person that you were meant to become. And I honestly feel like our trauma, it, of course, it wasn't welcomed. We didn't want it, but it happened for us. And there is going to be a moment in your life that you're going to realize, like, oh, that's why I went through that. That's why I went through that. And I think that most of the time we just want, going back to, we just want our life to be very level. No problems, no problems, and we'll be okay. That's not how life is. And we don't want life to be like that. We need life to be ups and downs. So don't think that your downs are always going to be down. Don't think that your lowest moments are always going to keep you low. And a lot of times I think people don't want to touch their lowest moments because it hurts. And it's almost like you have a band-aid on it. But honestly, if you touch it, the moment you touch it, you feel it. and we don't want to feel it. So we suppress and we suppress and we put it behind us, put it behind us. But then one moment, something will happen and all of it will come rushing back to us. And then we won't know how to deal with it. So I always say, feel the feeling, feel what you need to feel. If you don't want to focus on it, that's one thing. But remember what we were talking about earlier, pause and play. If you learn how to pause and play your story to work for you and not against you, I think the doors and everything will open up for you. I think if you don't stay stuck in the moments of course, get the help that you need. The first step is knowing that you need it, knowing that it's okay to have it.
Right.
Asking for help is okay. Getting help is okay. Receiving the benefits of having someone that knows what they're doing to help you heal this trauma, there's nothing wrong with it. But I think if you just pretend like that's old news, it doesn't bother you, it's not going to come up. It will come up when you least expect it. So know that it's okay if it does. You can pause and play it as you need to, but also know that when you heal it, it feels so freeing.
Yes. How do people connect with you?
Oh, there's so many ways. So I'm just going to say social media is probably the quickest, easiest way. Brisa Alfaro on Instagram, Facebook, all of that. I'll give you all of my, or you have all of my information you can put in the comments. But also brisaalfaro.com or even pinkymoves.com. So remember, small moves make a big difference. Don't take lightly all your small moves, because everything that you're doing right now for you, for your audience, for everyone that's listening, know that your small moves really do make a big difference. Don't look at them like they're just not big enough, not impactful enough. It is impactful.
Exactly. Oh, I love this. And it's so funny because I don't usually jump in and share what I'm up to, but this coming Sunday morning at 9 a.m., I'm teaching a workshop, and it's an introduction to my 8-week course on clarity. It's called Clarity Catalyst, but it's how, because sometimes, we hear move your pinky, but we don't know how. So this course is a mini workshop, and it's to see what it's like to physically start to take action. And if everyone gets what is intended to get out of it, then I would love to invite everyone to the 8-week course. It has truly saved me because it gave me the how-to. I would watch people like you and go, she's so spectacular. How do I become someone who knows how to speak on a stage? How do I become? And the truth was, it was every day do something. And I think about it when I'm doing hot yoga. I think about wax on, wax off, like Karate Kid, like what is your wax on, wax off? What do you do every day that builds your character? And what is your wax on, wax off? And we all have what we do, and it's magical that we get to share it together. And I am honored to be in this space with you. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for having me. I love it. I love the conversation. I love the conversations I've already listened to. This conversation right now, every time I tell my story, I heal a little bit more. And I honor you and thank you for doing that for me and holding this space for me.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Love you all.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.